From today, I'll be taking care of Sophia and Emma. My husband's words made my sister-in-law and niece smile triumphantly. I felt so frustrated, biting my lip hard. I know you don't like Amelia, but these two, who are my own flesh and blood, are more important to me. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. In the end, he always puts his family first. I've been taking care of the house and raising our child all this time. And yet, he never helped me, not even once. And how he cares more about his sister. Just because I'm his wife doesn't mean I can't do anything. I will make sure he deeply regrets underestimating me. My name is Amelia, 35 years old. I live with my husband, whom I met during my student days, and our 7-year-old son. But I have a problem. I can't work. After tiring out from the social dynamics at my first job, I found it hard to work long hours. So, I work part-time while taking care of our son. I try to contribute to our household financially, but I quickly get exhausted and dizzy. Feeling guilty, I continued with my part-time job. Sorry, I would say, handing over a small amount of money each month, but my husband always told me not to worry about it. He knew about my mental state and was kind enough to respect my wishes, despite suggestions from others to make me a housewife. I hated that my body wouldn't allow me to work. As our son started school, I began to find some breathing space. Eventually, I could even handle a full-time job and started finding fulfillment in my work. My husband and I were classmates. He was the class president, serious and always paying attention to me, who was often alone. Thanks to him, I was able to fit into the class without many bad memories. We started dating after he confessed at our graduation, and we got married when I became pregnant with our son, Richard. Richard has always been shy and hasn't quite detached from us yet, but his daily growth is a joy to watch. But one day, everything changed. My husband's attitude towards me shifted drastically. I had an inkling why. It must be about his sister. It happened one day when things at work were going smoothly. My husband's sister, Olivia, had a traffic accident. He has 2 siblings, a sister and a younger sister, making them my sisters-in-law. We only meet a few times a year, and my husband, having what you might call a sister complex, is incredibly kind to both of them. So, when Olivia had the accident, I was torn about going to her, but while Richard and I were waiting at home, my mobile phone rang. Hello? Amelia. It was James on the phone. When I was about to ask if I should visit Olivia in the hospital, he casually said, Amelia, you don't need to come to visit. Why not? It seemed strange not to visit my sister-in-law as his wife. When I asked, he replied, because Sophia apparently doesn't want to see you. Olivia has fractured her leg and is currently with Sophia and little Emma. She definitely doesn't want to see you. He said this with a laugh, as if my feelings didn't matter at all. Sophia, my sister-in-law, has always been harsh with me, perhaps having a brother complex herself. My husband seemed indifferent to the situation, often telling me to step back because that's what Sophia says, and you, as my wife, should respect that. I was frequently told something along those lines. Hold on, is Olivia okay? She's fine, but you really don't need to worry about it, Amelia. But still, I could hear a heavy sigh on the other end. Look, you're misunderstanding something. This is my family's issue, and it has nothing to do with you, Amelia. You really can be so clueless. He hung up without listening to me. Such a selfish man. Honestly, I've never been fond of my husband's family. Besides Sophia, my niece Emma also looks at me with cold eyes. Olivia, who is married, is sometimes nice to me. But the two of them, Sophia and niece, seem to see me as the one who took their brother away. And my husband treats them like princesses. Seeing my son looking worried, I hugged him gently and said, "Let's eat, shall we?" They were both tough on my son. Maybe it would have been better if he resembled his father, but Richard takes after me. That might be why they once asked, "Is he really my brother's child?" We married after having our child, which might have fueled their commands. My husband never reprimands them. Even jokingly, he coldly said that night, "If what Sophia says is true, I'll divorce you." Of course, that's ridiculous. I always denied it with a smile. I never thought he would say it to our son, but then Richard asked me about it. "Dad told me..." He said that to his own son? That day, my husband didn't come home. I decided it was fine, had dinner with my son, and went to bed early. "Hey, Amelia, why didn't you prepare dinner? Sophia made it for us." "Yeah, Amelia, what's this all about? You're letting my brother eat this?" The next day, my husband brought Sophia home. I was surprised to see them when I returned from work. She's in high school and seemed to be just back from school. "I'm sorry, it was just the two of us yesterday, so I made something simple." "That's no excuse, Sophia's here. Didn't you even think to prepare a welcome gift?" It's not that easy to do something like that all of a sudden. "Come on, Amelia, that's pretty harsh. I want cheesecake from the department store." I hadn't been told they were coming today. In a rush, I apologized, but Sophia, seizing the moment, demanded what she wanted. The department store's cake shop is always crowded. I knew that, and it was almost time for my son to come home. "I'd like a chocolate cake." "Thanks in advance." They waved me off, not listening to what I had to say. Before I could protest, my husband pulled me to the door, saying, "Make sure you're back by 6 p.m. Sophia is here," and shut me out. No money, and less than 30 minutes left until 6 p.m. Getting the cakes in such a short time was impossible. Feeling disappointed by my husband and Sophia's selfishness, I got into the car. "We're running late. I have a bus to catch in 10 minutes. "I'm sorry, there was traffic." "Amelia, there must be some back roads or something. Can't you think of anything?" "Exactly." They laughed at their own remarks, even though I had already taken the shortest route through the back roads. I bit my lip and went to my room to change. But to my surprise, they started playing games. And then Sophia opened the cake box and said, "Oh, there's another cake here." "That's for Richard." "Richard won't be back soon, right? He can get something from the convenience store." Happy to have permission from her brother, Sophia ate my son's cake. Don't they think about my son at all? Speechless and disgusted, I left the laughing pair in the living room and went to do the laundry. In the end, instead of leaving at 6 p.m., Sophia went out to eat with my husband. Then don't rush me for 6 p.m. After Sophia left, I talked to my husband about it, but he just frowned and said, "My sister is hospitalized, and Mom and my brother-in-law are also at the hospital. Can't you be a bit more considerate towards Sophia?" "It's not about that. Just don't rush me for 6 p.m. You're so annoying. Actually, we planned to be back by 6 p.m. What are you, her mother?" He plucked his ears, annoyed, and said, "Next time, make sure you cook properly." He hadn't even told me they were coming today. If I had known in advance, I would have prepared something. But my husband, who always puts his sister and niece first, would never listen to me. Since then, Sophia started coming to our house more often. Eventually, even my niece, Emma, began to visit. Emma, a middle schooler, was like an older sister to my son. So, when she came over, my son was always happy to join in their games. It's nice that my son has someone to play with, but I couldn't help worrying about how Sophia treated him. And my husband never reprimanded her, so before I knew it, I had become an unwelcome presence to my niece. Did you eat already? Yeah, Mom said we should eat all together. That day was my son's birthday. I had told my husband in advance not to work late, and he even agreed, considering it was our son's birthday. But my husband, who apparently took half a day off, had taken our son to his parents' house. "My sister gave me a present," my son said, seemingly unconcerned, but they had apparently already had a party there and were full. I had prepared a cake and made all of my son's favorite dishes for nothing. Of course, no one informed me, otherwise I wouldn't have cooked so much today. Mom was angry, saying, "Does Amelia care more about her work than her son?" "But I didn't know we were going there." "You should understand that, or at least confirm it." It turns out the birthday party was Sophia's idea from a previous visit, and she had gotten permission from both of them. But I wasn't informed at all. Such an unreasonable. Sophia's selfish actions always end up affecting me. Like today, my husband scolds me as if I should have known something I wasn't informed about, making it seem like my fault. Lately, Sophia has been kinder to my son, it seems. So, my son doesn't dislike her anymore. And with his beloved cousin around, he's happy to go with my husband to his parents' house. "Here, this is your birthday present from Mom." I tried to cheer up and handed it to my son, but he looked puzzled. "I got this from Sophia." "What?" The gift I had prepared was a game that my son had wanted. It was chosen in consultation with my husband, but Sophia couldn't possibly know about it unless my husband had told her. Looking at my husband, he seemed in a bad mood, saying, "You duplicated the gift? What kind of mother does that? But we chose this together a while ago." My sister was worried about what to give, so I told her about this game. "You should have read the situation better. You're failing as a mother," my husband said. I held back my retort, apologized to my son, and put the gift away. My husband seemed oblivious to how I felt and added insult to injury. "By the way, Mom and my brother-in-law won't be around for a while, so I've decided to take care of Sophia and Emma." "What do you mean?" "They are having a hard time managing on their own, so I'll be responsible for their food and shelter. I need you to give up your room for them." He said it was already decided, instructing me to move out of my room. I hadn't heard such a thing before, and he even told me to move my room to the garage. My son seemed happy about them coming. It felt like I was the only unwanted one. I began to feel like my son was becoming more like their family. I had to change this, not for me, but for my son. The next day, I asked my husband when the two of them were expected to arrive. He didn't have an exact date, but gave me a rough idea. I began to dispose of and move things out of my room. My husband had said to get rid of anything unnecessary or move it. So, before the day came, I took action. Unfortunately, my husband was visiting his parents, leaving just my son and me. I moved my things from my room, disposing of what wasn't needed. When my husband returned, he was shocked. "What the hell is this?" "What do you mean? Is there a problem?" "A problem? Look at this mess!" "I just did what you said, moved and disposed of things." "Right, I only moved my room. Everything else, unnecessary, I disposed of. I moved everything I bought out of the house. All of it, every single item I bought, including the appliances necessary for housework, the TV, the washing machine. Even the apartment is in my parents' name. So, I spoke to them and arranged to vacate the apartment in a month." My husband was trembling, but he was unaware of this. He wanted to live here as if it was his own, with Sophia and niece, but this place was originally where I lived. So, when he said to move and dispose of things, that's exactly what I did. Why are all the appliances gone? You said to dispose and move things. With that, I left the room. He called after me, saying the conversation wasn't over, but I ignored him. As he realized I was in my room, he came over, raising his voice. The conversation isn't over. Why are you angry? I'm not angry. You told me to move my room, right? Oh, and I don't need this anymore. Holding the luxury watch I had given my husband, I spoke up. Despite only working part-time, I had been a secretary at my previous company and had saved up quite a bit, allowing me to manage even with shorter work hours. That's why most of the gifts I gave while we were dating were expensive items. Hey, that's mine, isn't it? Well, I bought it, so I don't need it anymore. Saying that, I packed the luxury watch into a box. Inside the cardboard box were many clothes and branded boxes. My husband's face turned pale at the sight. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was, in a sense, perfect timing. Ignoring my husband's attempt to stop me, I walked to the front door. But this was just the beginning of my revenge. He needed to feel more pain to atone for what he had done to me. Opening the door, I found Sophia and niece, both carrying several bags, seemingly planning to gradually move their belongings in. Welcome! I greeted them with a bigger smile than usual, causing them to look wary. Unperturbed, I invited them in. They were clearly unsettled by the state of the room. Taking something from my room, I approached them. Sophia, your birthday is coming up soon, right? Yeah, it is. Thanks for everything with Richard's present. Here, this is an early present from me. I handed her the box I had previously given to Richard. But I bought this. No, you must take it. Confused, Sophia watched as I cheerfully insisted. This is something your beloved brother and I chose together. You have to accept it, or he'll be sad. Indeed, the item intended for Richard was chosen by my husband and me. When I conveyed this, Sophia's face turned red with embarrassment. You have to take it. It's my way of saying thanks. As I spoke sarcastically, she opened and closed her mouth, unsure of what to say. Sophia, perhaps angered by my attitude, started crying. Hearing this, my husband rushed in, his face ashen. How can you behave like this towards a high schooler? I'm only doing what Ava and Olivia permitted. What? Mom and sister? Indeed, I had spoken to Ava and Olivia about the situation. I told them how I was never informed about anything regarding their family, including my son's meal gatherings. Upon hearing this, they were furious. They were appalled by Sophia's childish behavior and my husband's immaturity, despite being an adult, and they were unaware of his plan to bring Sophia and niece to our apartment. They supported my plan. Although I hadn't interacted much with Olivia, she understood my situation and even encouraged me playfully to go ahead with my plan. I know you don't like them, Amelia, but these two, who are my own flesh and blood, are more important to me. If you don't like it, let's get a divorce. Thank you. Then, let's divorce. What? My husband, evidently shocked that I didn't object, stared in disbelief as I presented him with the divorce papers I had prepared beforehand. Wait a minute. Ignoring his panic, I told him that the apartment was being sold, that I had moved my belongings to another apartment, and that I had obtained approval from his family. You want a divorce, right? I'm happy to oblige. Oh, and please sign quickly. I need to catch the 6 p.m. bus. Wait a minute. After some frantic behavior, my husband eventually acquiesced and signed the divorce papers. I was finally free. He looked dejected and asked, "What about Richard?" "I've already discussed it with him." "No way." When I talked to my son that day, he readily agreed to come with me. I was relieved when he chose to stay with me. I was finally free from them. We now live in an apartment near my parents' home. Later, after recovering from her hospital stay, Olivia came to visit with gifts and apologies. Despite being confined to a wheelchair due to the accident, she made the effort to come to my apartment to apologize on behalf of her daughter and Sophia. However, I never felt any animosity towards her. She understood the feelings of being a daughter-in-law and had given me advice on several occasions. It was just my husband and Sophia that I disliked. Of course, I never want to have any dealings with my ex-husband and Sophia ever again. According to her, my ex-husband and his sister were kicked out of the apartment and had to return to their parents' home. However, Ava, having heard my side of the story, refused to let them stay, citing their previous talk of living together as a reason why it didn't make sense for them to return. My former niece, scolded by Olivia after her return, now occasionally helps Richard with his studies as a tutor. I'm still attending psychiatric treatment and, upon consulting with my doctor, managed to seek legal advice. My former sister-in-law had apparently complained about me being sloppy and disorganized to other relatives, which, after seeing her message, encouraged me to take action. As a result, my ex-husband faced allegations of moral harassment, and after consulting with the family court, I was able to claim alimony. "She sold all my stuff, that jerk." At the family court, my ex-husband, now jobless, shouted angrily at me. However, since the items were purchased by me, they weren't technically his. Despite attempts to calm him by the lawyers, I had a plan. I could return them, but your actions alone could be seen as moral harassment. "What? But those things were—" "You always said I was slow and dull, right? Then returning them might take some time." I deliberately spoke in a cheerful tone, using his own words about my supposed slowness against him. My ex-husband, realizing the situation, fell silent with a red face. His financial difficulties were of no concern to me. I was satisfied just to have shown him the consequences of his actions. In the end, he was ordered to pay alimony for moral harassment. Sophia and ex-husband couldn't return to their parents' home, and as the rumors spread to his workplace, he ended up working multiple temp jobs while living with Sophia. They're together, which they probably like, but I've decided to have nothing to do with them anymore, and Ava agrees. I now live with my son. Since the alimony was settled, I felt more mentally relaxed. What's more, I'm happy that I've been able to return to my previous job as a secretary, even if it's part-time. Olivia and Ava still worry about me and occasionally check on Richard. Although I had intended not to have any contact with my ex-husband's family, my son loves these two, so we meet everyone except my ex-husband and Sophia. "My dream is to marry someone like my mom and cherish our family just like Mom and I do." When my son said this, I was moved to tears. Looking forward to such a happy future, I plan to build a happy home together with my son.